Thank you very much. Thank you, Fleetwood. Good morning, everybody. As Fleetwood said, my name is Herman Wenhold. I have almost 35 years experience at Sasol. The bulk of my career was at Sasol Mining, where I led several operations and also had a previous stint as the SDP, back at mining now as the SDP. I also worked at Secunda Operations at one time in my career and also Natref, but my blue blood is actually mining blood. Aligned with what Fleetwood said, I will be touching on those points that he highlighted, but I will also be touching just on our future reserve replacement strategy. As you know, that many of our reserves will be mined out in the future, and specifically Sibonelo, which is the external mine that is supplying coal to Sasol Mining, will be mined out by FY25, end of FY25, and we need to replace that reserve. So just to talk about the Secunda Mining operations, Secunda Mines provides three markets of coal. Our biggest market is Secunda Operations, where we provide coal both for the gasification process and for utility processes. We also provide coal to Sasolburg Industria Operations, and that in Sasolburg. We provide that from Wenhold. I'll talk a bit more about the Wenhold mine. In comparison with Secunda, it's a much smaller mine. It only produces 1.3 million tonne, but only for utilities for Sasolburg. So important to note that Sasolburg coal is not gasified. And then we also provide coal to the export market through mainly to historically European markets, but also now to the Middle East markets. We provide coal to that market, and from the export business we also have a middlings product that we supply through to Synfuels. I think it's important when one looks at the overview of the Secunda reserve, because that's the one that we show there, the size of the reserve. So we do show in the middle the Secunda operations, and what you can see, the mines that we have in light grey there, Twisdrive complex to your right, we've got the Brandspruit complex, we've got a Middelburg complex, etc. Those are the mines that were originally, Bosjesspruit is the last one, those were the mines that were originally constructed and mined for Secunda Operations, much closer to the centre. But now we are actually mining from Irenidale down to the south. In Mpumalelo, you can see right to the west. We also mine from Tubelisha to the north. And then you can see Tweedrive, Riversdale and Deltavrede, which is our Syferfontein complex to the right. And what I want you to visualize through this slide is the fact that the size. On the left hand you can see our most southern point to northern point is 62 kilometers, and then from east to west it is 66 kilometers, where we actually have people actively involved in mining operations on a daily basis, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. I think what is also important to note is when once we leave here and we travel to the different mines, it will take between 20 and 30 minutes travel from here. We will not be going to Mpumalelo mine, because that will take 40 minutes to an hour to travel that way. And once you get to the collieries and you actually go underground, it will be approximately on average a 30-minute travel in an LDV underground to actually also reach the operations. So that just gives you an impression of the size and the region across which our employees mine coal. For Secunda, our overland belts that conveyors that bring coal to Secunda Operations is now more than 100 kilometers of belt that we convey our coal on. And you could see the blocks at the bottom, so I'm not going to repeat those. I think the one challenge that we have, and there's a very good reason why those mines originally were so close to Secunda Operations, because that was the best quality from a reserve perspective. So if one now looks at the quality of the coal, you can see there the purple and the blue, we're just showing the ash content was much better with the mine closer to the Secunda Operations. As we're progressing further and further now, we are seeing much higher levels of ash. We are also seeing sinks, which is a rock band in our coal face. We're seeing that increasing. And to actually mine this reserve now is not only mining the reserve with mechanical means through continuous miners, but we also have to use drill and blasting methods because of the amount of geological intrusions. And if I can simplify it, it's a lava rock face that you actually mine into, and you can't mine through that lava rock face with a continuous miner. You have to withdraw your sections, and what we do, we refer to as stonework, which is drill and blasting. You drill the rock and you blast it, and some of these areas can be as thick as 30 to 40 meters that you have to blast through, and due to the heat, when it was formed, you have what we refer to as burnt coal in front and behind of these rock faces, and you also have different mining methods to actually mine those. So what we are seeing, and it is having an impact on the production output of this reserve base, is that you don't only mine it through your continuous miner mechanical means, but you have to do much more of this rock and drill and blasting work in order to create flexibility for you in mining this reserve. So when one then looks at the next slide, we do show a reduction in productivity. Now, this productivity has been brought about due to the fact that some of our sections even mine with the stonework or drill and blasting section with them, but you have to do much more of this drilling and blasting, and also due to the difficult geology, you need to do much more roof bolting, and you'll experience that today. Our intent is to show you roof bolting in practice, and we also have to bolt the side walls these days that you didn't have to do 10 or 15 years ago. You didn't have to do that, both because of the geology, but also to improve our safety. And the regulator has also put in regulations that force you to actually put in sidewall bolting and more roof bolting to prevent roof falls and sidewall falls. I think the important matter that I want to show from this slide is you can see we indicate the Sasol mining productivity, and you can see the reduction, and that is the grey bar. Then we also just show you in the blue bar the Secunda mine productivity, only for the Secunda complex. But what you then see from a Sigma perspective is the line. And you can see Sigma's productivity is in the order of 300 tons per cm per shift. So 30% or less than the Secunda operation. Now, the Wenhold reserve is a reserve that was specifically chosen because it's a very low sulfur content reserve. And you need to provide low sulfur coal content to the Sasol operation in order for them to meet their emission requirements. Low sulfur reserves are not available in South Africa in the reserve base anymore. That's one of the last collieries that's got a low sulfur reserve. That reserve, however, has many undulations. So it's got a undulation going up and down, and that impacts on your mining tempos. And also, where in Secunda you can cut 15 meters before you need to bolt, there you cut 6 meters before you need to bolt. So your mining process is much slower. So the primary objective at Sasolburg is to get the low sulfur coal mined no matter at what tempo, and to do it safely at all times. It's a very, very difficult mine. But from a Secunda perspective, our challenge is to increase the productivity at our Secunda collieries and to reverse that trend. And I'm now going to share with you some of the plans that we have in place and are developing to improve the productivity from a Secunda perspective. And you also note in our reporting going forward, the focus will be much more on the productivity from the Secunda reserve. So when you look at that slide, this slide just indicates the targeted actions that we are busy to improve both productivity in the Secunda area as well as the coal quality in the Secunda area. I'll focus a bit more on the coal quality later on, but I've spoken about the high ash and also the sinks in the coal that we need to manage. And each one of these blocks I'm going to unpack on the next slides. I think what is extremely important to note is that all of these actions are based on an unwavering foundation of safety, and I'll just touch on that on the next slide as well. So the first action that we've launched to actually improve our productivity in the Secunda reserve is the implementation of full calendar operations. Now, what full calendar operations is that you mine 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Previously, in the Secunda reserve, we mined 5.5 days, and we've actually mined for 5.5 days, and the weekends you actually used for either off time for your employees, or you use that for maintenance of your equipment. However, due to the challenge that we've had, that we have so many more geological disturbed areas, you needed to use your equipment that you have as to the maximum availability that you have, which is 7 days a week. And we then decided to start mining 7 days a week, 24 hours, so you mine 7 days, 2 shifts of 12 hours, so you mine a full calendar operation. However, the improvement expected from that implementation of the full calendar operation didn't realize the design and the expectations. And we are now busy with the program to realize full potential per section through the FULCO program. What we are doing is we are specifically wiring our production sections and our collieries to focus on safety and to focus on the productivity process, specifically to address cutting minutes. Now, what do I mean with wiring? Wiring is designing an operating system and then coaching and training people to do their work on a daily basis, almost according to a recipe, but based on a plan which you have to execute for the day. And you also then coach your people to identify specific opportunities that you have to increase the cutting minutes. So you're going to see today, you will be going underground. Some of you will go down by shaft, others when you go to Sasol, you go through the high wall. You will experience traveling underground, and it takes you about 30 minutes to get to the section. So for us, we measure to what time do you do your first sum after your shift has started, and there's a specific point in time that you need to do that, and you're going to experience some of the activities that you go through. So the wiring program is aimed to reduce that minutes that you lose on your way, that you lose going down in the shaft, etc., to reduce that minutes so that you can actually maximize your cutting minutes. We have implemented the Full Potential program specifically in our Safer Fontaine already. The ramp up was slower than what we expected, but we are seeing that in June we achieved 1,200 tons per cm per shift at Safer Fontaine. We are now busy with wave 2 at Tubelisha and Shondoni Colliery, and then the wave 3 of this program will progress to Bosjesspruit and Impumelelo collieries by the second half of this financial year. Some of the other initiatives that we are busy with to also improve our productivity specifically has to do with the formation and the changing of our culture, and we are focusing on establishing a high care, high standards culture. The high care culture is specifically based on the humanizing safety that Fleetwood had spoken about, to show a deep care for our employees, but from a standards perspective, we also expect our people to operate and adhere to all operating standards to ensure that we prevent injuries. And the operating standards is once again directly linked to the HSI program that Fleetwood spoke about, and to ensure that everybody applies the life-saving rules. One of the big challenges that we are experiencing with the implementation of FULCO is, as I explained earlier, the weekend time that we used to do maintenance for our equipment is not there anymore. And although you've designed in some maintenance time in your 7-24-hour shift, that is difficult for us to optimize on our maintenance, and we also find that the quality of our maintenance is not as it was prior to the implementation of the FULCO process. So we are busy with a specific program to reanalyze our maintenance strategies and our approaches, and the time that we do maintenance, and the skills that you require for the maintenance. You will see that today. We also have technologically advanced equipment. So that's why we are also developing what we refer to as master artisans that can do fault finding on the equipment quicker, so that you can repair quicker and be back in operation quicker. I think a very important point that I referred to earlier is improving our mining flexibility. With the fact that you have so many geological intrusions, you need to make sure that you have enough space. So currently what we have is when a section actually hits one of these rock bands, we don't always have space to relocate those sections to. So we are now accelerating in establishing additional ventilation shafts so that you can create flexibility to have sections that cannot mine further in a specific area, that you can relocate them to a different area. But to do that, you need to do drilling so that you can know where you need to go. And you also need to do stonework, which refers to the drilling and blasting that I referred to earlier. Another important aspect that we are piloting at this point in time is to increase our capacity through what we refer to as walk-on, walk-off sections. And in the next slide, I just unpack that in I hope, a simple, understandable format. So what you have across the Secunda complex at this point in time is you have a gang of people or a crew of people that's got one continuous miner and one roof bolter, and they mine. But due to the mining process and the safety requirements that you have, you can't mine the entire shift. So you progress, you cut a specific face, that continuous miner must withdraw, you do some roof bolting, that continuous miner must then be relocated at a very slow tempo to a next phase, and that next phase must be prepared, it must be already bolted, etc., to cut that. So what we are piloting at 2 sections at this point in time is we've actually combined 2 continuous miners and 2 roof bolters in 1 section. It's known in the industry as a double header as well. There's specific safety requirements that you need to adhere to because the 2 continuous miners are not allowed to cut it simultaneously due to ventilation requirements. So what we're testing at this point in time is to take some of our very low production sections that's mining with stonework, to take those continuous miners out, to combine them with high production sections, and to then use your shift cycle much more effective. So what you have is you've got one continuous miner cutting, while another continuous mining is being relocated to a face. You are, with a second roof bolter, bolting your second face road that you need to go in, so that when this continuous miner has stopped cutting and you're going to withdraw that for roof bolting and some maintenance, the other continuous miner can start cutting immediately. We are piloting that in 2 sections, and we have equipment to actually deploy that in 5 sections so that we can utilize our cutting minutes much more effectively. Should this be very successful, it could mean that we can reduce sections further, but that we have more double-header sections. And what that will also bring about is that the productivity KPI, which we're currently referring to as ton per CM per shift, we will also start reporting it as ton per section per shift, because certain sections will now have more than one continuous miner. Just from a coal quality perspective, we have indicated that the ash and the sinks in our coal and the geology base has increased to such a level that it is impacting our gasification process, and we're busy with 4 actions to actually address the coal quality. The first is continuously focusing on the training of our operators to not cut the roof and cut the floor. I know it sounds easy saying it, it's not always visible. Therefore, we are also implementing certain mechanical control methods through inclometers that you can set the continuous miner. The geologist helps you to determine the reserve thickness. You set your head at a specific point so that the operator doesn't cut further than that. Then a very important aspect from Sasol mining is the fact that we're mining a reserve base that you see how big it is that you get certain qualities of coal from one colliery, and it might be different from a different colliery, but the gasifier doesn't like variability. So we have a very scientific process to actually blend the coal from the different collieries to make sure that the gasifier continuously sees the same recipe. And we are busy enhancing that work. We are busy investigating technology to actually have in-time coal quality measured and reported. At this point in time, it takes 2 to 3 days from a lab. So we're looking at enhancing those processes so that in future, through AI technology, you can actually have your recipes designed based on your reserve base and then blended at your stackers and reclaimers to ensure that we've got the best blend that we provide to Secunda operations. Then we are also, due to the low productivity at Sasol mining, we are also purchasing coal, where up to a point we purchased for volume. We are now not only purchasing for volume, but in certain instances we are also purchasing to ensure that the quality of the coal and the sinks content of the coal actually is taken into consideration, so that the ultimate blend that we provide to Secunda operations has as low as possible sinks. Finally, we have the destoning project that has been communicated. I think positive at this point in time is that the feasibility has been completed. We have made decisions on the site where we will be constructing the destoning plant, and we've also made a technology decision on the technology that will be used. The environmental permit application process has started. Important to note that this process will take approximately 1 year, and you need to wait for your permit before you can actually start construction of your process. But we will be ready to take FID most probably in the first quarter of next year, of 2024, or quarter 3 of FY24. We will take a final investment decision during that time, and after we've taken that decision, it will be flexible regarding the long lead items, the environmental permit, which is a very flexible process. Although the government says they will endeavour to do it within a year, that can run over. So the expectation is that after FID has been taken, in the order of 24 to 30 months after that, we will then actually have the plant up and running. So although we do indicate some dates there, those dates will be flexible because it's highly dependent on the regulator to approve our water license and environmental permits, and it will also be dependent on some of the long lead items that we need to order, and then obviously construction from there on. I would just like to show you a quick video just on the destoning and quality processes.
Sasol has been mining coal in and around Secunda for more than 40 years. In this time, we have invested in technology to enhance the safety, quality and efficiency of our mines. The quality of our coal is critical to the optimal performance of our synthetic fuels production process, as we can maximize the value out of coal to produce valuable energy and chemical products. Since 2020, we have experienced a shift in the geological profile of the coal seams in the Secunda area. This shift in geological profiles has seen an increase in ash and what we call sinks, which include non-coal or inorganic rock in the coal. We have enhanced our understanding of these coal quality issues through extensive investigation and analysis to implement the most appropriate improvement measures. We are working on a number of options that will improve coal quality. These include improving in-section quality controls, securing better quality coal through external coal purchase contracts, and implementing technological solutions. Technological solutions such as destoning have the potential to become major enablers for better value chain performance by reducing ash and sinks content in the coal delivered to our Secunda operations. Once implemented, the raw coal feed from our mines will be fed into the destoning plant by conveyor belts, where the coal will be separated from higher density stone particles through a dense-medium separation process. Dense-medium separation cyclones typically use the suspension of magnetite in water in conjunction with the forces acting within the cyclone to efficiently remove sinks from the run-of-mine coal. From the destoning plant, the coal will be fed directly into the gasification process, where coal is gasified for Sasol synthetic fuels and chemicals process. Destoning will help reduce ash and sinks to the gasifiers, which will result in better syngas production while improving energy efficiency. Over and above destoning, we are continuing with actions to reduce the ash and sinks content of run-of-mine coal from our collieries, such as horizon control and training of in-section personnel to increase quality awareness. Our Integrated Quality Management Center will leverage digital and artificial intelligence technologies to influence the blending of coal at mine source and improve the quality of the overall blended product. This technology will make a significant difference to our integrated value chain performance and is testament to our spirit of innovation.
The last topic that I want to just touch on is the long-term coal supply sources that we are considering to supply Secunda operations. As I mentioned earlier, Isibonelo colliery will be mined out by the end of FY25, and we need to replace that source. And the supply shortfall is exacerbated by the fact that we are also not producing enough coal from our internal sources. So that our productivity improvement programs are aimed at also closing that gap. But you can see the big challenge is that we need to replace the 3 to 4 million tons that's been supplied by Isibonelo. We have done a lot of work under the leadership of Rian Rademan over the last 12 months to develop economic models, because we need to evaluate different options. It's not only about volume, as I indicated earlier. From a quality perspective, it's important, and also from a fine coal perspective, which is a quality parameter, it's extremely important. As Isibonelo is an open cast mine, which gives us coarse coal, and the gasifiers prefer coarse coal. So part of our blending is to blend coarse and fine coal together so that we have that consistent feed into the gasifier. We have evaluated, or in the process of evaluating, many options. That process will come to a conclusion towards the end of this year, and we believe we'll be in a position in the first quarter of 2024 or quarter 3 FY24 to take a final decision. Those alternatives that we are evaluating is to establish the Alexander coal mine, which is right to the north, if you can remember, just to the right of Syferfontein complex, is where the Alexander colliery is, basically quite close to the current Isibonelo colliery. So that is one of the alternatives. But other alternatives are also to purchase 4 to 5 million tons from external sources. We will prefer to buy that from one source because it makes your quality management much easier, but it is not excluded to only include one source. Then to also specifically close the gap for FY26, which you can see is the biggest gap that we need to close. We will continue with our current purchasing program. We also have contracts in place for FY24 and 25, and some of that will be extended to 26. But another opportunity that we are investigating, and we are busy with tests at this point in time, is to reroute some of our Tubelisha coal, either run-of-mine coal, in other words, as you produce that coal, or you wash the coal, because the washing process, if I say wash, you beneficiate the coal for export, because the beneficiation also removes sinks. But unfortunately, it's not a perfect world that we are in. The Tubelisha coal has a coking propensity in the gasifier. So you can't take the whole Tubelisha coal just through to Secunda operations, so you can only limit it in the blend, and we are currently busy with tests to determine that blend, that we can divert some of the Tubelisha coal to Secunda operations. I think it's important to note from a Tubelisha perspective as well, is that the yield of the export yield of that reserve base is reducing over time, and according to the current 10-year program plan, that export business we will stop in the early 30s. We might accelerate that if that becomes the best option, but it is built into our economic models as one of the evaluation levers. The next one or two slides is basically a summary of what I've said and what you've heard today. We, as Fleetwood indicated, we saw building some momentum in the second half of FY23. We're building on that momentum. We are seeing weeks where we have excellent weeks getting close to our production budgets, but then we have other weeks where we still have infrastructural reliability problems. We are working extremely hard on that to address that. And we also believe that the introduction of the walk-on, walk-off sections will help us to increase our cutting minutes. And all of this, bottom right hand, will always remain on a bedrock of safety, where we're still continuously implementing our safety remediation program after some fatalities that we experienced 2 to 3 years ago. The outlook for FY24 is aligned with the guidance that we've given to the market previously. For the Secunda collieries between 975 and 1,100 tons per cm per shift. We are continuously managing our stockpile above 1.5 million tons. That's why we will also fluctuate our purchases. If you have a stockpile above 1.5 million tons, it makes your blending for the Secunda operation so much easier. We are busy at this point in time to have an intense focus on cost as well, and the intent is that we need to stabilize on our cost between the per production ton for the range that we indicate there, and we have a specific capital program according to the portfolio management approach that we will adhere to. That capital program does include de-stoning going into the future, and it also includes means to make us more flexible to ensure that we've got the right ventilation shafts in place so that we can relocate some of our sections. The final slide is just repeating what I focused on today, and we will continue with our productivity improvement and full potential program so that we can get back to 1,200 tons per CM per shift. That will assist us to purchase less coal and to then make sure that we retain the value in Sasol. We will continue focusing on de-stoning. It is required to ensure that we can reduce the sinks or then the inorganics to Secunda, and focus on coal to ensure that we have reduce the variability in our coal supply. And as I said, we believe in the next quarter or so we will have finalized the options for the longer term supply in 2030 as well. Thank you very much. Thanks, Fleetwood. Thanks for the opportunity. I would just like to say that our aim today is when you go underground is to show you a CM cutting. Okay, so that's our intent today for all of you here to see a continuous miner cutting. I wish I could stand here and guarantee that you're going to see a continuous miner cutting. So that's our honest intent. If some of you don't see that because of a breakdown, I'm apologizing right now, but that's the intent. So I hope you can see a CM cutting today. Thank you very much.